big shout out to Jocelyn of Otaku's Basket for graciously supporting me on Patreon and getting this request done. Wait a minute. Angel Sanctuary, why does that sound familiar? Oh, wait! So I'll be honest, the one thing I knew about this show going into it is that it's got an incest romance as its main feature. I'm typically one of those folks that says do as thou wilt, but I draw the line at incest and pedophilia, thank you. And considering the amount of siscom that permeates anime nowadays, just to be fair, I'm going to have to dock this one points out of the gate. Don't worry though, there are plenty of other reasons to hate this show. This story revolves around this douche whose name is Setsuna and his sister Sarah. Setsuna is trying to blow off his sister because his sister wants to blow him off. Their parents are divorced probably because they realize they fucked up somewhere along the way because their kids are trying to play hide the sausage.
Well, I think you're right. It is strange for siblings to go on dates. I think I've got a severe case of brother complex.
Oh really? You just figured that out? And I will give him some credit. At least he's not doing the usual thing where he's just like, this is fine. Everything changes for Setsuna when this androgynous character comes up and tells him that he's actually an angel named Alexiel, who is apparently female. This is written in such a way to make me think that a 14-year-old girl in the early 2000s probably squirted this out. And I just bet that if I sent my team of minions out, I could find a totally original, and I use that term loosely, fanfic or bit of smut from round about 2003 that plays about like this does. And I know I've been kind of harping on that style of writing, if you can call it a style, but when you've got melodrama and weird kinks substituting for character depth and conflict, the first thing I can think of is fanfic written by a horny teenage girl. Sad but true.
Your face betrays your feelings all too easily.
So after getting told by his friend, hey, stop dating your sister, which is a phrase only uttered in context to this show and certain concerned citizens of Mississippi, he gets assaulted by demons. But not before he accuses a trans woman of being just a gay dude. And the award for the most offensive offhanded statement goes to... Usually when I get presented with such a train wreck, I can come up with some way to amuse myself, or just have a laugh over how atrocious it is. I am absolutely flummoxed by this one. Maybe it's just my age getting to me, but every minute of this is just a testament to incompetence and maudlin pseudo-depth. And before you razz me too much for harping on it, I once did an AMV to an Evanescence song. I know maudlin. So now it's on to backstory nonsense. Apparently angels are running roughshod over heaven and they're doing angeling wrong. And this brings me to my next point. Whenever I hear about a writer coming up with the quote-unquote brilliant ideas of maybe angels actually are bad, it's always followed up by a sound that sounds like... Durr. I don't know what it is about this particular idea, because it is not in and of itself bad, but for some reason, the creative people who could really have a go at that concept never ever touch it. And it's left to ham-fisted pen jockeys who think that they can make some huge sweeping point about it. And it gets even worse when you transplant this idea into a nation whose primary experience with Christianity is mostly crucifixion as a fun way to kill someone in 1650. Fascinatingly enough, the author of Angel Sanctuary actually did do the research on angelic hierarchy and all that stuff, but somehow it just didn't quite make the cut into the adaptation to make room for more dumbassery and weird jump cuts to drug deals. Because there is actually a fair bit of combat in it, I do feel the need to touch on it just briefly. It has about as much impact as a Chuck Norris straight-to-video 80s action flick. The cuts are clearly missing in-between animation, the blows look like they're just whiffing the whole time, and while the monster transformations are cool, they lack any real sort of threat. This is what happens when you try to make an anime with a budget of what you find in your couch cushions, folks. It's actually kind of hard to watch this for more than a few minutes at a time. The animation is stiff, and even if the characters do look on model, those models are absolutely average and uninteresting. Going off model might have actually given me something worth looking at, and that takes a lot for me to say. The dialogue makes Twilight look like Shakespeare, full of the same incoherent nonsense and self-soothing bullshit that tries to say, you know what, it's cool to try and bone your sister. Action happens without an adequate explanation as to why it should be happening, or why we should care at all. It already has a huge hurdle out of the gate to make us feel bad for these characters, so why do they try so very hard to make Setsuna absolutely unlikable? I'm already hoping and praying that this guy gets rent limb from limb. The show even acknowledges, hey, maybe this guy is kind of an asshole, and it's weird that he wants to bang out with his sister. So why are we letting him get away with it? Oh, and trust me, it gets even better, because if you thought he was a jerk now, listen to this particular bout of absolutely disgusting rampant sexism.
A woman acquires beauty and grace when she learns to let someone protect her! Stop acting like a man!
I don't even want to unpack that. You know why that's wrong. Or at least you should. Somehow, in the intervening years between this being released and Monster Musume getting an anime, absolutely nothing changed. It's still the same awful, mawkish, idiotic writing that has as much emotional depth as How is Babby Formed? There might be something more interesting to it in its original form, but as it stands, it's just another paint-by-numbers piece of crap whose only claim to fame is that it's an evolutionary throwback and chock full of incest. It's not even funny in its utter ineptitude. Maybe if you like cringe humor, but the sheer amount of overdramatic nonsense is worse than a whole collection of Latin American soap operas. At least those are funny. So there, I have fulfilled my obligations to review this 3-episode OVA. Its one saving grace is that it is currently out of print. So if you do happen to come across this, do the universe a favor and dispose of it in the proper receptacle.